So we're going to add some animation to these quote boxes. So when the page loads, they're going to kind of bounce and rotate a little bit. So they're going to kind of jiggle into place. And to do that, we are going to be using keyframes, which is part of 3D animation. And we're going to be using transform and translate. Translate is used to move the content, and we're going to be using transform and rotate, okay, which is going to make it look like it's rocking. So we're going to go over into the CSS, and I'm going to add this to the bottom. So there's two parts to this. You have to add the keyframes with the animation, and then you're going to give your animation a name. And then you have to add the animation tag or animation property with the animation name to an element. So we use @keyframes, give it a name. We're going to call this bounce. Okay, and then we define how we want the animation to work. Okay, and what I like to use is this percentage technique because it lets you do quite a bit of animation under a given name. So we're going to say transform, translate Y. And so this is going to be kind of our starting point on the Y axis. And then at 20%, I'm basically going to be doing the same commands, but I'm going to be adjusting the location. So it's still transform, translate Y, but now I'm going to put it at 165 pixels. And if you remember, X and Y axis, Y is vertical, okay, X is horizontal. And then at 30%, I'm going to go ahead and just quick put the percentages in, because a lot of this is going to be copy, paste, and adjust. Okay, for 30%, I'm actually going to do a rotation. So it is transform, rotate 10 degrees. Then at 40%, we're back to translate Y, which I should still have in my clipboard. So I'm going to paste. And for this one, we are going to keep the Y at 0. And then we get to 50%. That is, oops, that's a rotate. So let's copy rotate. And that's going to be -10 because this is going to give us a little rock. And then we get to 60, and this is a translate Y. And for this one, it is 100 px. And then we get to 70%, and this is also going to be a translate Y. It's going to be 0, so we might as well copy one of the zeros. Get to 80%. This is going to be a rotate. So let's copy a rotate. And that's going to be a +5 degrees. You'll notice that the 10 here was negative. And that's so we can get it to rotate in a different direction. And then for the last one, we're back to a translate Y. And that's going to be 75. And getting these settings the way you want them, it's kind of trial and error. So, you're going to set it up, you're going to test it offline, and if you like it, awesome. And if you don't, you have to make adjustments. So, this is the animation. So, you can see for why it's going to start at the top, it's going to go down 165. It'll rotate 10 degrees. It's going to go back up to the top. It's going to rotate -10. It's going to come down, go back up, rotate 5, and then it's going to come down. So it looks like it's bouncing and kind of rotating at the same time. Now, where we're going to apply that is to a division tag. And so the property we're going to use is animation name. And the animation name is bounce. And then we're going to use animation iteration count to tell it how many times. We want it to go once. And animation duration, how long do we want it to last? We want it to last a second. Okay. And if you look, here is the div tag. That has the class of quote box and a class of child. Okay, so if we come up here and look, that's where our quote box is. And that's also where child is. And you can see that this is Flexbox. So I'm going to go ahead and save. And let us see how this works. Okay, so you can see it going up and down on the Y. You can see it rotating. And at this point, we are done with Famous Quote.